What if I told you that a team just committed $229 million to a player they acquired midseason, essentially betting their entire future on a guy who turned down a smaller deal with his previous team? This deal might be the most shocking contract extension in modern NBA history, not just because of the money, but because of how it completely flips the script on player movement and team building. The San Antonio Spurs just did something that defies all conventional basketball wisdom. This isn't just about De'Aaron Fox getting paid. This is about a legendary franchise making a statement that could either be the smartest move they've made in years or a decision that completely changes their identity forever. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand why this contract extension is sending shockwaves through every NBA front office, and why it might just change. Let's rewind the clock, because you need to understand just how wild this timeline really is. Picture this. It's October of last year, and De'Aaron Fox is sitting across from Sacramento Kings management, staring at a 3-year, $165 million contract extension offer. That's life-changing money for most people, but Fox? He looked at that deal and essentially said, "Thanks, but no thanks. I'm betting on myself." Now, when a star player turns down that kind of guaranteed money, it usually means one of two things. Either they're supremely confident in their ability to earn more on the open market, or they're not entirely sold on the organization's direction. In Fox's case, it was probably both, and Sacramento was about to find out the hard way. Fast forward to midseason, and here's where the story takes its first jaw-dropping turn. The Kings, faced with what appeared to be another mediocre season and growing concerns about Fox's long-term commitment, made a decision that seemed inevitable but still shocked the basketball world. They traded their franchise cornerstone to the San Antonio Spurs. Think about this for a second. Sacramento had just spent years building their identity around Fox's elite speed, his playmaking ability, and his defensive prowess that led the league in steals. This wasn't just any player. This was a guy who averaged a career-high 26.6 points per game while becoming one of the most dynamic two-way guards in the entire league. And they just let him go. But here's where this story gets absolutely insane. The Spurs, a franchise known for their methodical approach, patient development, and legendary culture under Greg Popovich, suddenly had one of the league's fastest and most explosive guards. It seemed like a perfect match. Fox's raw athleticism and speed combined with San Antonio's developmental system and winning pedigree. For Sacramento, it looked like they had made the smart, albeit painful, decision to get something in return for a player who clearly wasn't committed to their rebuild. Teams make these tough choices all the time, right? Sometimes you have to cut your losses and move on. But the Spurs? They saw something completely different. They saw a 27-year-old all-star entering his prime, a player with elite physical tools who had never played in a truly structured winning environment. They saw potential that maybe even Fox himself hadn't fully realized yet. And apparently, Fox saw something in San Antonio too. Because what happened next is where this story transforms from interesting to absolutely unprecedented. Most players who get traded mid-season, especially stars who turn down extensions, use that as motivation to prove their worth for a massive free agency payday. The typical playbook is simple. Have a good half-season with your new team, hit free agency, and cash in with whoever offers the most money. Fox threw that playbook out the window. Instead of waiting for free agency, instead of testing the market to see what his maximum value might be, Fox did something that almost never happens in modern NBA. He fell in love with his new situation so quickly and so completely that he was willing to commit long-term before even playing a full season with the team. Think about how rare this is. We're talking about a player who was so uncertain about his future in Sacramento that he turned down $165 million, but was so convinced by what he saw in San Antonio that he signed for $229 million after just a few months. That's not just a significant increase in money. That's a complete 180-degree turn in his approach to his career. What did Fox see in those few months with the Spurs that completely changed his perspective? Was it Popovich's coaching, the organizational culture, the way they utilized his skills, the potential he saw in playing alongside Victor Wembanyama and the young core they're building? Whatever it was, it convinced him that San Antonio wasn't just a good landing spot, it was worth betting his entire prime on.
Reached agreement on a 4-year, $229 million max contract extension with the Spurs that keeps him in San Antonio through the 2029-30 NBA season. This is a signing that'll occur later on Monday, and De'Aaron Fox and his rep Rich Paul navigated a trade to his preferred destination, the only place he wanted to be San Antonio back in February. He wanted to be a Spur. He got there. He got his wish. And now months later, he gets the full max contract. And this is after the Spurs already drafted Dylan Harper, have the reigning Rookie of the Year as well, and Stephon Castle. So that backcourt is loaded. So now he's going to have no state taxes as well with this extension compared to his old California residence. But for De'Aaron Fox, him, Victor Wembanyama, him and Victor Wembanyama.
Spurs making sure they made that move early. Sham's catching a stray right there, bro. Taking a shot at California. Sham, thanks so much for that.
Well, first, kudos to De'Aaron. He got what he wanted. He's back home. His wife's from around there. He got paid, and he's with Wemby. But the question is, like, a lot of people don't know this. The Spurs haven't been in the playoffs since 2019, which sounds kind of absurd to say.
It is.
Wemby has not played in the postseason. I expect him to be healthy and take the team to the playoffs. I think they will be a playoff team. And then the next thing is people are like, well, De'Aaron, you got these other two guards, great guards, Castle, the rookie coming in. I don't think they do anything right now. You let those two guys, let Harper grow, let Castle grow some more, and Fox will be a great mentor for them. They're a really scary team if everybody's healthy.
All right, let's dive into the meat of this deal, because when you start breaking down the numbers, this contract becomes even more fascinating and, frankly, more revolutionary than it first appears. De'Aaron Fox just signed a 4-year extension worth $229 million with the San Antonio Spurs. That breaks down to an average annual value of around $57.25 million, which immediately puts him in the upper echelon of NBA earners. We're talking about the kind of money typically reserved for MVP candidates, championship leaders, and players who have proven they can be the best player on a contending team. But here's what makes this deal absolutely mind-blowing from a structural standpoint. The max deal has no player option in the final year and reportedly lacks a trade kicker. For context, one of the most dynamic guards in the league just signed a massive extension with essentially zero protection clauses, committing completely to an organization he's been with for less than a year. In today's NBA, when star players sign supermax deals, they typically negotiate for every possible protection and leverage point. Player options give them the flexibility to hit free agency again if things don't work out. Trade kickers provide financial compensation if they get moved against their will. No trade clauses ensure they can't be shipped off without their consent. These aren't just nice-to-have additions, they're standard practice for players with Fox's talent and production. So why didn't Fox negotiate for these protections? The answer reveals something fascinating about both his confidence in the Spurs organization and his understanding of what San Antonio represents as a destination. Let's put this deal in perspective by comparing it to other recent Supermax extensions, because the numbers are truly staggering. Jason Tatum's 5-year, $314 million deal with Boston includes multiple protection clauses and was triggered by all NBA honors, the gold standard for elite wing players. Luka Doncic's projected Supermax was supposed to reach $346 million over 5 years had he not been traded, reflecting his MVP-level impact and the Mavericks' willingness to pay for a generational talent. But here's what makes Fox's deal so peculiar when you really dig into it. His average annual value actually competes with some of the most accomplished players in the league. Tyrese Halliburton, who has a similar profile as a young, dynamic point guard, signed for $52 million per year with Indiana. Anthony Edwards, widely considered one of the league's brightest rising stars with significantly more playoff success, is earning $49 million annually with Minnesota. This raises a fascinating question that's probably being discussed in every NBA front office right now. Is De'Aaron Fox really worth more per year than Anthony Edwards? Is he more valuable than Halliburton, who led the Pacers to the Eastern Conference Finals? On paper, purely from an accomplishment standpoint, it's hard to make that argument. Fox has made one All-Star team and earned one All-NBA selection. Those are solid achievements, but they're not typically the resume that commands top-tier Supermax money. Meanwhile, players like Edwards have not only put up similar or better individual numbers but have also led their teams to deeper playoff runs and shown they can perform on the biggest stages. But here's where the Spurs' thinking becomes really interesting, and why this deal might actually be genius rather than overpayment. San Antonio isn't just paying for what Fox has done, they're paying for what they believe he can become in their system, alongside their developing talent, and within their organizational structure. Think about Fox's statistical profile for a moment. 26.6 points per game, elite speed that creates advantages other guards simply can't replicate, league-leading steal numbers that showcase his defensive impact, and playmaking ability that consistently creates opportunities for teammates. Those are the building blocks of a superstar-level player, and the Spurs are betting that their developmental system and winning culture can unlock that potential. The timing of this deal also reveals something crucial about how the Spurs view the current NBA landscape. We're operating in a post-new CBA environment where salary caps are becoming more restrictive and luxury tax implications are more severe than ever. The salary cap is projected at around $165 million for 2026-27, and new apron restrictions are making it increasingly difficult for teams to build complete rosters around supermax players. In this environment, acquiring star talent through trade and then immediately locking them up long-term might actually be more cost-effective than trying to build through free agency or hoping to develop that level of talent internally. The Spurs essentially used their trade assets to acquire Fox, then used their cap space and future financial flexibility to ensure he never hits the open market. From Fox's perspective, the structure of this deal tells us something important about his mindset and his trust in the Spurs organization. By agreeing to a contract without player options or extensive protection clauses, Fox is essentially saying he believes San Antonio is where he wants to spend the prime years of his career, regardless of what happens with coaching changes, roster moves, or organizational shifts. That level of trust and commitment is almost unheard of in today's NBA, especially from a player who literally just arrived via trade. It suggests that whatever Fox experienced in his months with the Spurs completely convinced him that this is a special organization with a special opportunity. Here's why the De'Aaron Fox extension isn't just another big contract, it's a potential blueprint that could fundamentally change how small market teams compete for and retain elite talent in the modern NBA. For decades, the conventional wisdom has been that small market franchises like San Antonio are at a massive disadvantage when it comes to acquiring star players. The thinking goes that superstars want to play in big markets, with glamorous franchises, in cities that offer maximum exposure and endorsement opportunities. The Spurs have historically overcome this by developing talent internally and building through the draft, but they've rarely been players in the top tier of the trade or free agency markets. What Fox's extension proves is that organizational excellence and winning culture can still triumph over market size and glamour, but only if you're willing to make massive financial commitments and create the right environment for stars to thrive. Think about what the Spurs offered Fox that he couldn't get elsewhere. A proven developmental system, a legendary coach in Greg Popovich, an organization with 5 championship banners, and perhaps most importantly, a clear vision for how he fits into their future plans alongside generational talent like Victor Wembanyama. But beyond the basketball factors, the Spurs also offered something that's becoming increasingly rare in today's NBA: complete organizational commitment. By giving Fox this extension without requiring him to prove himself over a full season, San Antonio sent a message that they view him as a cornerstone piece, not just a rental or a temporary solution. This approach could revolutionize how small market teams think about talent acquisition. Instead of hoping to draft stars or waiting for disgruntled superstars to force their way out of bigger markets, teams like San Antonio can be proactive in identifying undervalued talent and then making immediate, massive commitments to secure them long-term. The financial implications of this strategy are both risky and potentially brilliant. On the risk side, the Spurs are committing over $200 million to a player based largely on potential and fit rather than proven results in their system. If Fox doesn't elevate his game to match his salary, or if the team chemistry doesn't work out as expected, they could be stuck with an albatross contract that limits their flexibility for years. But on the potential upside, if this works, if Fox becomes the superstar-level player his tools suggest he can be, and if the Spurs build a contender around him in Wembanyama, then they've essentially acquired a franchise cornerstone for the cost of some trade assets and cap space. In today's market, that might actually be a bargain compared to what it typically costs to land a player of Fox's caliber. The deal also challenges some fundamental assumptions about player motivation and loyalty in the modern NBA. For years, we've been told that players prioritize flexibility, that they want to maintain maximum leverage and keep their options open. Fox's willingness to sign a long-term deal without protection clauses suggests that the right organizational fit might be more valuable to some players than maintaining maximum flexibility. This could inspire other small market teams to be more aggressive in their pursuit of star talent. If you can convince a player that your organization, your culture, and your vision for their future is superior to what they might find elsewhere, maybe you can compete with the Lakers and Knicks of the world, even if you can't match their market advantages. From a league-wide perspective, Fox's extension represents a potential shift in how we think about team building and player movement. The traditional model has been that superstars eventually gravitate toward big markets or super teams, but the Spurs are betting that elite organizations with clear visions and strong cultures can retain and attract top talent regardless of market size. If other small market teams follow this blueprint, if they become more willing to make massive financial commitments to acquire and retain stars, we could see a more competitive balance across the league. Teams like Oklahoma City, Memphis, Cleveland, and Milwaukee might become more aggressive in pursuing available stars, knowing that they can compete with anyone if they're willing to show that level of organizational commitment. Perhaps most significantly, this deal suggests that the era of player empowerment might be evolving into something more collaborative. Rather than players demanding trades and forcing their way to preferred destinations, we might see more situations where players and organizations work together to find mutually beneficial long-term solutions. Fox could have easily played out his contract, hit free agency, and potentially created a bidding war that might have gotten him even more money. Instead, he chose to commit to San Antonio based on what he experienced in just a few months with the organization. That suggests a level of trust and mutual respect that could become a model for how other player-team relationships develop. So there you have it, the most shocking contract extension in recent NBA memory, and honestly, maybe one of the most significant deals we'll see for how it changes the game between players and organizations. De'Aaron Fox didn't just get paid, he and the Spurs just created an entirely new template for how small market teams can compete for elite talent. Whether this deal ends up being brilliant or catastrophic remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: the NBA landscape just shifted in a major way. The Spurs proved that organizational excellence can still trump market size, but only if you're willing to bet big on your vision. What do you think? Did the Spurs just pull off the heist of the decade, or did they mortgage their future for a player who might not be worth supermax money? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed breaking down this wild contract situation with me, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that are reshaping the NBA. Trust me, if this deal is any indication, we're in for some fascinating storylines over the next few years.